I'll be talking about the shift at Graceland. Priscilla in, the family out.
There are things I've kept locked away for over 60 years, stories I chose not to tell, moments I witnessed but never spoke about publicly, and I made that choice deliberately, because some doors once opened can never be closed again. But here's what I've learned. Silence, when it protects a lie, becomes complicity, and I will not be complicit anymore. My name is Donna Presley, and I need you to understand something from the very beginning. I'm not someone who showed up after the fact. I'm not someone reconstructing events from newspaper clippings or third-hand gossip. I was there. I was there when Priscilla Beaulieu first entered Elvis's world. I watched it happen in real time. I saw the shift, the change, the calculated way she positioned herself. And I've spent decades watching her rewrite every single moment I lived through. You need to know what she's been hiding. Not speculation, not rumor. The actual truth that's been buried under carefully crafted interviews, strategically written books, and a public persona designed to make you believe one version of history while the people who actually lived it stay silent. Well, I'm done staying silent. Priscilla has built an empire on a narrative, and that narrative depends on one critical element, the absence of witnesses. She needs you to believe that she was the only one who really knew Elvis, the only one who understood him, the only one who was truly there during the important moments. And to make that work, she's had to do something unforgivable. She's had to erase us. The family, the people who gave everything to Elvis. The people who were there every single day, not just during the glamorous moments she curates for the cameras. I knew her from the moment she arrived. I watched the dynamic between her and Elvis from the very beginning. And what I saw then, what I've known all these years, is exactly who she is now. People don't fundamentally change. The tactics get more refined, sure, the performance gets more polished, but the core, that stays the same. And here's what kills me. Here's what's kept me up at night for years. I've watched her claim closeness to people she showed nothing but coldness toward. My grandmother, Mini-Me, who Priscilla now writes about with such supposed affection in her books. You want to know the truth? My grandmother saw right through her. She knew exactly how calculating Priscilla could be, the ice that lived under that polite surface. The way she could turn emotion on and off like a switch when it served her purposes. But in Priscilla's version, in the story she sold to the world, Grandma was devastated when she left. Heartbroken, lost without her. That's the narrative, and it's a lie. A deliberate, calculated lie designed to make Priscilla look like the beloved family member who was tragically separated from people who adored her. The truth? My grandmother knew exactly what she was dealing with, and she wasn't sad to see that kind of coldness leave the house. That's the pattern, you see. Profess closeness, claim intimacy, make yourself the emotional center of every story, and then in the very same breath disgrace the people you claim to have loved. Do it subtly enough that most people don't catch it. Wrap it in the language of honesty or tribute or remembrance, but make sure, absolutely sure, that you remain the hero and everyone else becomes a supporting character in your drama. I say this now, and I say it publicly, fully aware of what it means, out of love. Love for my cousin Elvis, who deserves better than the distorted legacy he's been handed. Love for my uncle Vernon, who stood by his son until the very end. Love for my mother and my grandmother, who poured their lives into that family and have been systematically erased from the story. And love for truth itself, which has been suffocating under the weight of carefully managed fiction for far too long. Priscilla's recent book is just the latest version of the same old game. New lies built on top of old ones. New accusations disguised as honesty. New attacks dressed up as concern or tribute. And every single time, the people who were actually there, the people who actually knew what was happening day by day, get written out of the narrative because we're inconvenient. Our memories don't match her story. Our truth contradicts her version, so we have to go. And let me be absolutely clear about something, because this is important. What Priscilla has been hiding isn't some scandalous secret about Elvis. It's not some dark revelation she's been protecting him from. What she's been hiding is the truth about herself. About who she really was in that house, about how she operated, about the coldness, the calculation, the strategic positioning that happened behind closed doors while she smiled for the cameras. She's been hiding the fact that she wasn't the devoted, loving presence she spent decades claiming to be. She's been hiding the reality that the family saw her for exactly what she was. She's been hiding the fact that her version of events requires the systematic removal of everyone who could contradict her. I have stayed quiet while she's done this. I've watched her go on television, sit for interviews, write books, and methodically tear down the people I love while building herself up. I've watched her weaponize Elvis's memory to create a brand, a legacy, a mythology that serves her and her alone. And I've carried the weight of knowing the truth while she's sold fiction. But there comes a moment, and that moment is now, when you have to make a choice. You either keep protecting someone who's weaponizing your silence, or you stand up and say, no more. Not one more lie, not one more erasure, not one more rewriting of history that requires my family to disappear. What Priscilla has been hiding is simple, really. She's been hiding the fact that love, real love, doesn't do what she's done. Real love doesn't humiliate, doesn't diminish, doesn't require the destruction of other people's truth to validate your own story. And the world deserves to know that. Let me tell you about the women who actually raised Elvis. The women who were there every single day. The women whose names you probably don't know, because Priscilla has made sure of that. My grandmother, Minnie Me Presley. My Aunt Delta Me Presley. My mother, who lived right there on the Graceland property. These weren't occasional visitors. These weren't people who dropped by for holidays and special occasions. These were the women who woke up in that house every morning, who cooked the meals, who provided the stability and love and daily presence that made Graceland a home and not just a mansion. But here's the thing, if you've only heard Priscilla's version, you might not even know they existed. Or if you do know about them, they're footnotes, background characters, barely worth mentioning in the grand story of Priscilla and Elvis. That's not an accident, that's a choice. A deliberate, calculated choice to reshape history into something that serves one narrative and one narrative only. Priscilla as the emotional center of Elvis's universe. Let me give you a perfect example. In her recent book, Priscilla claims, and I want you to really hear this, she claims that my grandmother was the only family left at Graceland. The only one, as if everyone else had just vanished, as if the house was empty except for this one elderly woman and Priscilla herself. That's a lie, a flat-out provable lie. My Aunt Delta lived in the mansion itself, not nearby, not in a guest house, in the mansion. She was there every single day until she passed away in 1993. My mother lived just behind the main house right there on the property. She was present, she was involved, she was family. But in Priscilla's telling, they don't exist. They're erased, removed from the story as if they never mattered, as if they were never there, as if their decades of love and service and presence meant nothing. This is what I mean by erasure. This isn't forgetting. This isn't a minor detail that slipped through the cracks. This is the deliberate removal of people who were witnesses, people who saw the real dynamics, people who knew the truth about what happened in that house when the cameras weren't rolling. And why would you erase those people? Because they're dangerous to your narrative, because they remember things differently than you want the world to believe, because their very existence contradicts the story you're trying to sell. Think about what that means. Think about the audacity of standing in front of the world and saying, I'm going to tell you the truth about Elvis, while simultaneously deleting the people who were actually there, while removing the voices that could contradict you, while rewriting the family structure itself to make yourself the lone emotional anchor. It's not just disrespectful, it's not just hurtful, it's strategic historical revision, it's propaganda dressed up as memoir. And here's what makes it even more twisted. Priscilla doesn't just erase these women from the timeline. She claims closeness to them when it serves her. In her books, she'll write about my grandmother with apparent affection. She'll paint herself as the devoted family member who understood Minnie Me, who connected with her, who was loved by her. But then in the next breath, in interviews and public statements, she'll talk about Elvis and his family in ways that disgrace them. She'll make accusations. She'll paint narratives that wound the very people she claims to have cherished. She'll reduce a complex, loving family to stereotypes and dysfunction. You cannot have it both ways. You cannot profess love and closeness to someone while simultaneously undermining their legacy, disrespecting their memory, and erasing their family from history. That's not love. That's not honor. That's using people's names as props in your story while stripping away their actual humanity and truth. My grandmother wasn't just some sweet old lady in the background of Priscilla's Elvis story. She was a force. She was a woman who held that family together through unimaginable loss and pressure and public scrutiny. She raised Elvis when Gladys died and Vernon was shattered. She was there through every up and down, every triumph and tragedy. She gave her entire life to that family. And she deserves better than being reduced to a supporting character in Priscilla Beaulieu's carefully constructed mythology. She deserves to be remembered as who she actually was, which includes being clear-eyed enough to see exactly what kind of person Priscilla was behind the charming exterior. The same goes for Delta, for my mother, For all the family members who poured themselves into Elvis's life and are now treated as if they're irrelevant to his story. As if a man's life can be understood without the people who actually lived it alongside him. As if you can know Elvis while ignoring the family that shaped him, supported him, and stood by him until the very end. This erasure campaign isn't just about rewriting the past. It's about controlling the present. Because as long as Priscilla can position herself as the primary authority on Elvis's life, as the person who knew him best, as the emotional center of his existence, she maintains power over his legacy. She becomes the gatekeeper, the interpreter, the one whose version matters most. But that power depends entirely on the silence and absence of other voices. It depends on the family being forgotten, dismissed, or too hurt and too tired to fight back. And I think that's what she's counted on all these years, that we would eventually just fade away. That time would do what she couldn't quite do herself, remove us from the story entirely, that she could wait us out. But here's what she didn't count on. I'm still here. I remember everything. And I'm not going to let the people I love be erased from history just because it's inconvenient for someone's brand. The truth is that Elvis's life was filled with family. Real, present, daily family who loved him without agenda, without calculation, without needing to control the narrative after he was gone. And those people deserve to be remembered, not as footnotes, not as background noise, but as the essential, irreplaceable human beings they were. Priscilla has been hiding that truth for decades. She's been rewriting it, minimizing it, erasing it piece by piece. But the erasure stops now, because I won't allow the women who gave everything to be deleted from history by someone who gave so little. Let's talk about the drug narrative, because this is where Priscilla's dishonesty becomes not just hurtful, but genuinely dangerous to Elvis's legacy. Priscilla has made a very specific claim, one that she repeats in interviews, in books, in documentaries. She says Elvis had a drug addiction. She presents this as fact, as something she witnessed, as truth she's bravely revealing to the world. Here's the problem with that claim: Priscilla wasn't there. Listen to me carefully because this is crucial. From 1973 until Elvis's death in August 1977, Priscilla was not living at Graceland. She wasn't in Memphis. She had divorced Elvis and moved on with her life. Those 4 years, the exact years she now speaks most authoritatively about, the years she uses as evidence for her addiction claims, she wasn't present for them. She wasn't there for the daily reality. She wasn't there for the morning routines, the evening conversations, the ordinary moments that actually tell you who a person is and how they're functioning. She wasn't there watching him work, watching him parent Lisa Marie during his custodial time, watching him manage his career and his household and his relationships. You know who was there? My Uncle Vernon, my grandmother Minnie-Me, my Aunt Delta, my mother. They were there every single day. They lived in that house. They saw Elvis at his best and his worst, in public and in private, healthy and struggling. And not one of them would tell you the story Priscilla is selling. Was Elvis under enormous pressure? Absolutely. Did he deal with health issues? Yes. Did he take prescription medications? Yes, as many people did and do under medical supervision. But an addict, someone so consumed by drugs that it defined his life and caused his death in the way she implies, that's not the truth. That's a narrative designed to explain away a complex human being with a simple, sensational story. Here's what addiction actually looks like. Addicts can't maintain the kind of life Elvis lived right up until his death. They can't tour. They can't perform at the level he performed. They can't manage business decisions, maintain relationships, be present for their child, continue creating and working and functioning. The math doesn't work. The logic doesn't hold. Elvis's final years were filled with challenges, yes. But they were also filled with work, with purpose, with love for his daughter, with continued dedication to his craft. That's not the life of someone in the grip of the kind of addiction Priscilla describes. That's the life of someone dealing with the brutal pressure of being Elvis Presley, something Priscilla never had to carry herself. But she wasn't there to see it. She can't speak with authority about those years because she wasn't present for them, and yet she does speak with authority. She makes definitive statements about a period of Elvis's life she observed from a distance, if at all. Why? Because the addiction narrative serves her story. It makes Elvis tragic. It makes him flawed in ways that elevate her as the person who tried to save him. It creates a mythology where she's the clear-eyed truth-teller and everyone else is in denial. But the people who were actually there, we're not in denial. We're just telling a different truth than the one that sells books and gets interview bookings. And if the drug lie wasn't bad enough, what Priscilla has done to her own daughter is unforgivable. Lisa Marie Presley wrote a memoir. In that memoir, she bravely, painfully revealed something that took enormous courage to put on paper. She had suffered abuse at the hands of her mother's boyfriend. Not speculation, not vague implications. She documented abuse. She put her name on it. She made it part of the public record because she understood that her truth mattered. That's her testimony, her lived experience, her reality. And now Priscilla is trying to discredit it. She's actually suggesting, that Lisa Marie's words shouldn't be trusted because Lisa had her own struggles. Because Lisa dealt with addiction herself. Because Lisa's life was complicated and painful and imperfect. Let that sink in for a moment. A mother is using her daughter's pain, her daughter's vulnerabilities, her daughter's struggles, as a reason to dismiss her daughter's testimony about abuse. That's not just cruel, that's a betrayal at the deepest possible level. Lisa Marie was talented. She was intelligent. She was a caring soul who fought like hell to tell her truth before she left this world. And part of that truth was about the pain she carried, pain that came from being severed from her family, from being cut off from Graceland and the people who loved her unconditionally, from being isolated in a world that didn't understand what it meant to be Elvis Presley's daughter. Part of that pain also came from documented abuse. Abuse she named, abuse she survived, abuse she had every right to speak about. For Priscilla to now turn around and say, well, my daughter had problems, so maybe we shouldn't trust what she said, that's not just dismissive. That's erasure of the worst kind. That's a mother sacrificing her daughter's credibility to protect her own narrative. What kind of love does that? What kind of mother weaponizes her child's struggles against her own testimony? What kind of person looks at their daughter's brave truth-telling and thinks, I need to undermine that because it doesn't fit my story? Lisa Marie deserved better. She deserved a mother who stood by her truth even when it was uncomfortable. She deserved to have her words honored, not dismissed. She deserved to be believed. And Elvis deserved better too. He deserved to be remembered for who he actually was, a complicated, brilliant, loving man who carried impossible weight and did it with more grace than most people could imagine. Not reduced to a simple addiction story told by someone who wasn't even there. Priscilla claims she's protecting Elvis's legacy. She claims she's telling hard truths out of love. But you can't protect someone's legacy by lying about their life. You can't honor someone by rewriting their story to serve yourself. And you absolutely cannot claim to love your daughter while simultaneously working to discredit the abuse she suffered and documented. This isn't truth-telling. This is truth destruction. And the people being destroyed are the ones who can no longer defend themselves, Elvis and Lisa Marie both. But I can defend them, and I will. I want you to watch for something the next time you see Priscilla in an interview. Pay attention to the technique, because once you see it, you'll never be able to unsee it. She'll smile, soft, almost sad. Her voice will drop into this gentle, reflective tone, and she'll say something nice about Elvis, something that sounds loving, something that makes you think, oh, she really did care about him. And then in the very next breath, sometimes in the very same sentence, she'll deliver the knife. She'll say something cutting, something that diminishes him, something that paints him as troubled, difficult, flawed in ways that make her look like the patient saint who endured him. It's wrapped in concern. It's dressed up as honesty. It sounds like someone bravely telling uncomfortable truths. But what it actually is, what it's always been, is a calculated tactic to tear Elvis down while building herself up. I loved him so much, but he was so controlling. He was talented, but the drugs destroyed him. He was a good father when he could be, but his lifestyle made it impossible. You see how that works? The compliment is the spoonful of sugar. The criticism is the poison. And it goes down so smoothly that most people don't even realize they've just watched someone systematically dismantle a man's character while pretending to honor his memory. This has been her pattern for decades. Decades. Ever since Elvis died, this is what she's done in interview after interview, book after book, documentary after documentary. Smile, soften, say something sweet, then strike. Over and over and over again. And my family has had to watch it happen. We've had to sit in our homes, turning on the television or opening a magazine, and see someone trash the man we loved while the world applauds her for being honest and vulnerable. Do you know what that does to people? Do you know what it's like to watch someone you love be torn apart in public over and over, and know that most of the world believes the person doing the tearing? It scarred us, it wounded us in ways I don't think we'll ever fully heal from. And the worst part, the absolute worst part, is that most of the people who carried that pain are gone now. My grandmother died carrying it. My mother died carrying it. My Uncle Vernon died carrying it. They went to their graves knowing that the world believed a lie about Elvis, and there was nothing they could do to change it. I prayed that time would change things. I prayed that as Priscilla got older, as years passed, maybe wisdom would come. Maybe peace would come. Maybe she'd finally let go of whatever drives her to keep doing this. But she hasn't stopped. Even now, decades after Elvis's death, she's still doing it. Still smiling and stabbing. Still claiming love while dealing out humiliation. Still positioning herself as the devoted ex-wife while systematically destroying the man she claims was the love of her life. And that phrase, the love of her life, I need to talk about that because Priscilla says it all the time. Elvis was the love of her life, the great love, the one that mattered most. But I have to ask, what kind of love is that? What kind of love humiliates someone in death? What kind of love uses a man's memory as currency for fame and relevance? What kind of love requires the destruction of a daughter's credibility and the erasure of an entire family? Because that's not any kind of love I recognize. That's not what love looks like. Love protects. Love honors. Love tells the truth, yes, but it tells the truth with compassion and respect, not as a weapon. Love doesn't spend 47 years tearing down the person you claim to have cherished most. Love doesn't build a career on making someone look small. Love doesn't sacrifice your own child's testimony to preserve your narrative. Whatever Priscilla feels, whatever drives her to keep doing this, I don't think it's love. I think it's something else entirely. Something that needs Elvis to be flawed and tragic so she can be wise and long-suffering. Something that needs him diminished so she can be elevated. And I'm done pretending that's acceptable. I'm done staying quiet while it happens. I'm done letting her operate without accountability. I am the last of my line. The last one standing from the generation that was there, that saw it all, that knew Elvis not as a legend but as family. My grandmother is gone. My mother is gone. Vernon is gone. Delta is gone. Even Lisa Marie is gone now. But I'm still here, and I will not go quietly. I will not let this family be erased. I will not allow Elvis's memory to be distorted by someone who wasn't there for the years she speaks most loudly about. I will not permit Lisa Marie's truth to be dismissed by the very person who should have protected it. I stand unbowed, and I'm fighting for Elvis's honor, for Lisa Marie's voice, for my grandmother and my mother and every family member who gave their lives and their love and got written out of history for their trouble. The time for silence is over. It's been over. Every time Priscilla opens her mouth to deliver another veiled attack, I'm going to be here telling the truth. Every time she rewrites history to serve herself, I'm going to be here with the receipts, with the facts, with the lived experience that contradicts her fiction. She's counted on us dying off. She's counted on time doing her work for her. She's counted on the world forgetting that there were other voices, other witnesses, other people who knew Elvis as more than a tabloid headline. But she miscalculated, because I'm not going anywhere, and I'm not backing down. This is my promise. I will defend this family with everything I have. I will speak truth even when it's uncomfortable, even when it costs me, even when it would be easier to just let it go. Because some things are worth fighting for. And Elvis, the real Elvis, the man his family knew and loved, is worth fighting for. Lisa Marie is worth fighting for. The truth is worth fighting for. And I'm just getting started. If you believe families deserve to tell their own stories, if you believe truth matters more than carefully crafted fiction, then stand with me. Share this video. Subscribe to this channel. Let's make sure the real story, the one told by people who were actually there, doesn't get buried under decades of calculated narrative. Elvis, Lisa Marie, and this family deserve nothing less than the truth. Help me fight for it.